Dawn came without color. It came without sound. It came as a thin line of pale light pushing across the channel and falling over a small British signals detachment positioned near the coast of Kent. The men on the night shift logged their final entries. The day shift pulled on headphones still warm from another operator's ears. A teapot cooled on a wooden crate. A single lamp flickered above a table stacked with encrypted German wireless traffic. A corporal rewound a spool. He fed it into the machine. He checked the clock. 06:02 hours. He pressed a switch. A burst of high-pitched tones filled the headphones, uneven, clipped, rhythmic. Morse, enciphered by a machine that should have been unbreakable. Enigma traffic. Luftwaffe frequency. Routine weather report? Most likely. Or a dummy message. Or nothing at all. The corporal wrote down the groups. 47 characters. He passed the slip to a runner. The runner walked it to a vehicle idling outside the hut. The road to Bletchley was quiet. Frost lined the hedges. The war was invisible here, except for the lorries and the guards and the tension carried in the shoulders of the people who worked behind the fences. Inside Hut 6, the new intercept joined dozens of others waiting for processing. Some were torn, some were smudged by rain, some carried the smell of the sea. The shift supervisor looked over the pile. He called for assistance. Someone handed him a folder. Someone else fetched a logbook. The operators began their routine. At a small desk near the back of the hut sat a woman in a cardigan 2 sizes too large. She worked with her elbows close to her body, as though conserving movement, as though conserving time. Her name was Joan Clarke. She was 20-something. She was quiet. She was methodical. She was the person men in the hut were told to bring their unsolved problems to after they had tried everything else. She read the slip. She read it twice. She slid it under a lamp and made a quick mark in the margin. Not a weather report. Not a dummy message. Something operational. She began sorting the possibilities the way other people sort, coins by weight, by feel, by the faint differences that only trained fingers detect. Outside, the day grew brighter. Lorries came and went. New messages arrived. German operators rotated their cipher keys. Patrols moved. Squadrons shifted. The front widened. The war continued. Joan's pencil tapped the paper in short, clipped motions. She traced frequency patterns. She traced operator habits. She traced mistakes, human mistakes, the kind she relied on. She did not look up when someone placed a fresh batch of intercepts beside her. She did not look up when another operator cursed under his breath. She did not look up when the supervisor said, again, that the Luftwaffe had changed its settings in the night. She only looked up when the slip she was reading matched something she had seen 3 weeks earlier. A repetition, a small one, maybe accidental, maybe not. Most people would not have noticed. Most people did not remember the shape of an encrypted message the way she did. She pulled a folder from the bottom drawer. She opened it to a marked page. She placed the new slip beside the old one. The hut grew louder. Typewriters hammered. A Bombe machine in an adjacent building started its slow pounding cycle. Someone made tea in a metal pot that had long since lost its handle. Joan kept reading. A senior cryptanalyst approached. He asked for progress. She gave him none. She was not ready. He left. The pressure remained. By noon, she had reconstructed 2 likely operator errors. By 1, she had narrowed the possibilities. By 1:15, she saw a pattern that felt wrong. Wrong in a useful way. Wrong in a way that hinted at a break. She carried the slips to the supervisor. "We need to run a menu," she said. He frowned. "You're certain?" She nodded. They fed the data into the Bombe system. The machine clattered in its steel frame. Rotors spun. Contacts touched. False leads fell away. Wires trembled under the current. Minutes passed. Long ones. A bell rang. The operators crowded around. A possible setting. A real one. Not a full solution. Not yet. but close enough to chase. They confirmed the indicators. They checked the rotor order. They recalculated the plugboard settings. At 2:20, the machine fell silent. The supervisor turned to Joan. "You got it." She did not smile. She did not sigh. She only said, "Run the backlog again." Because cracking one message meant cracking all messages sent with the same key that day. Because each message was a piece of something larger, a movement, a supply order, a reconnaissance report, a casualty list. Because nothing in war existed alone. The team reprocessed the morning's intercepts. Clear text began to appear. Hours of German communication unfolded on the tables. Unit positions, weather updates, transport requests, radar issues, fuel shortages. The Luftwaffe's movements were no longer hidden behind Enigma's shifting rotors. For the moment, for this single day, the fog had lifted. Joan recorded her observations. She wrote them in crisp, compact lines. She handed the summary to an officer who did not meet her eyes. He left with the papers. The information would travel to commanders, then to airfields, then to bomber crews preparing for night operations. Decisions would follow. Losses would follow. Victories would follow. And none of the men reading the decrypted reports would know the name of the woman who had broken the key. Enigma was built to resist deduction. 3 rotors at first. Later 4. Plugboard cables. A stepping mechanism that shifted positions irregularly. The math allowed for more than 100 sextillion possible settings. A number so large it outlived meaning for most people. The Germans trusted the machine because the numbers looked invincible on paper. Large numbers often do. But machines depend on people. People are predictable. People repeat themselves. People send weather reports with the same phrasing. People sign off the same way. People make mistakes. The Allies built bombs not to overpower the math, but to exploit those mistakes at scale. Each machine simulated dozens of Enigma settings at once. Each machine tested possibilities at speeds no human mind could match. But the machines needed direction. They needed someone to build a menu, a hypothesis about operator errors, crib structures, and message patterns. They needed someone who could read noise and hear structure. Joan did not break Enigma by force. She broke it by patience, by listening to what the operators did not intend to reveal, by understanding routine, by understanding human frailty, by turning other people's habits into weapons. The work was technical. The work was exhausting. The work demanded precision without guarantee of success. Psychologists who later studied the huts described the environment as continuous, low-grade tension. Operators developed migraines. Analysts developed ulcers. People slept in bursts. People forgot to eat. People forgot what day it was. People stopped talking except in clipped phrases related to the task at hand. The rooms were overheated in winter and stifling in summer. Ventilation was poor. The lights flickered. The floorboards creaked beneath the weight of machines that were never designed for wooden huts. Everyone felt the pressure. Everyone understood that one day of unread traffic could mean hundreds of deaths at sea. Convoys depended on their work. Air raids depended on their work. Invasion plans depended on their work. No weapon fired a shot in Bletchley Park, yet the physical toll was measurable. Increased heart rate, elevated cortisol, deprivation of sleep cycles strong enough to alter memory, a sustained adrenaline baseline, common in combat units. But these analysts had no battlefield. Their war existed on paper, on wires, on rotors, on mistakes. At the strategic level, code breaking was not a miracle. It was infrastructure. It required mathematics, engineering, logistics, communication networks, encryption labs, message distribution pipelines, and layers of secrecy. It demanded an industrial society capable of producing machines at speed, maintaining them under wartime shortages, and deploying them across continents. It required trust between universities and the military, between mathematicians and machinists. between people who rarely spoke the same technical language. Britain's decision to invest in codebreaking before the war, when others dismissed it as academic speculation, proved decisive. Intelligence shortened battles. Intelligence redirected fleets. Intelligence prevented invasions that would have reshaped Europe. The war was not won by information alone, but it could not have been won without it. Joan's work, and the work of hundreds like her, demonstrated a principle nations still debate. The front line is not always a line. Sometimes it is a room. Sometimes it is a desk. Sometimes it is the mind of a person others underestimate. Years later, former colleagues recalled the moment she arrived at Bletchley. They recalled the skepticism. They recalled the comments, quiet, offhand, dismissive. Women can't do this work. Women can't handle the math. Women should type, not calculate. She listened. She took the test. She scored near the top. The ranking was recorded. The excuses were not. History often remembers the machines. History rarely remembers the people who built the logic around them. The people who saw patterns where others saw randomness. The people who never held rank yet shaped the battlefield. The Luftwaffe never learned that a woman had cracked its system on a quiet afternoon in Kent. It never learned how close it came to hiding its preparations for a coastal assault. It never learned how many of its pilots flew missions compromised before takeoff. It never learned why British aircraft appeared where they should not have been. War rarely gives answers. It only gives consequences. Joan retired without ceremony. She kept her oath of secrecy for decades. When the work was declassified, her contributions surfaced in fragments, footnotes, interviews, mentions in other people's memoirs. She spoke cautiously. She spoke minimally. She spoke like someone still accustomed to guarding information. She did not call herself a pioneer. She did not claim recognition. She did not argue with those who told her, once, what women could not do. Her record argued for her. The decrypted messages argued for her. The convoys that survived argued for her. Thousands of lives that never knew she existed argued for her. History does not always raise its voice. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it leaves a record in pencil marks on a slip of paper still stored in an archive. And sometimes the most consequential act in a war is the moment a quiet woman in an oversized cardigan looks at two encrypted messages, notices a flaw, and decides the machines must run again. That is where the war turned. Not with a shout, not with a charge, but with a pattern recognized, a key broken, a system exposed, and with a reminder that the limits people place on others often reveal more about the limits of their own imagination than the limits of human capability. History moves through those who see what others overlook. It moves through those willing to do the work no one praises. It moves through those who are told they cannot and proceed anyway. The war ended. The secrecy faded. The records opened. The pattern remains.